Social Anxiety Kyle. Nice to have you on the show.
Nice to be here, Jeff. Thank you.
That caught my attention. You sent out, or someone sent out, probably you, an email to my email box, and it said TEDx speaker, social anxiety Kyle. And I thought, oh, wait a minute. What's a social anxiety guy doing a TEDx? Because that has to be, I've never done one, but I've done lots of speaking. And there
Yeah.
are times you get very anxious. And if you're going by social anxiety Kyle, how did the TEDx talk come about? I'd love to find that out eventually. But welcome to the show. You're from Southern Indiana. We had a nice conversation the other day, and I thought I certainly wanted to get you on the show because it's a tough time right now for a lot of people, Kyle. There's a lot of reasons why, but anxiety and depression and those things seem to be pretty prevalent. So maybe a little bit about you to start, and we'll just see where this goes, man.
For sure. So yeah, I'm social anxiety Kyle. I know, really creative name, but
Yeah, millions in marketing for that one,
yeah. Let's see here. So yeah, I'm a TEDx speaker, big mental health advocate. I primarily focus on teens and young adults, helping them go from socially anxious to socially confident, and kind of like what you pointed to earlier. How'd you go from social anxiety Kyle to giving a TED talk? Uh, that was kind of how it started. Was I wanted to kind of expose myself to things that made me anxious, and public speaking was one of them. So I started doing little speaking engagements here and there, and ended up coming up with the goal to eventually do a TED talk. I wanted to do something that I thought was impossible for me.
Mm-hmm.
um, and so yeah, being able to actually go out there and do the TED talk, yeah, that was wild. It was pretty surreal. Like, it didn't even feel real. It was like, wow, I can't believe I'm even doing this right now.
Well, you did a great job. I watched it
Thank you.
after we first met, and I was really impressed. There's no way that I would have labeled you social anxiety Kyle based on that presentation. I'm sure inside your stomach was in fits, but you didn't show it. And that's what I think the key with kids is, we have this huge lens that we point towards ourselves so often, not just in speaking, but just in everyday life. That the reality is, if we can find a way to flip that lens and be less conscious of the eyeballs on us and more about the content of what we're talking about. And I have found, and I have attention deficit, Kyle. So I guess I had anxiety. I'm older than you quite a bit. I don't think we called it anxiety. We just called it nerves. When I was
Yeah.
growing up, that a lot of these words you guys use now weren't around. The issues were around, but we just called them something different. But I used to get real nervous before speaking and stuff. And if you think about it, being anxious is a less stressful way to look at a situation. Being nervous is kind of has a negative connotation to it, like you're scared. Anxious just
Yeah.
means you're excited, right? I mean,
Yeah. I mean, I wouldn't say they're the exact same thing, but they're definitely the exact same feeling. Like, the
right.
feeling of like when you're really excited compared to like when you're really anxious is like pretty identical. Yeah.
Yeah, but nervous though is a little bit different, right? I mean, that means you're actually literally afraid of what? Failure, embarrassment. There's lots of issues that go with that. So when you talk to
Yeah.
kids, what type of things do you say to them to keep them, confident? Obviously, your story is a great example that perseverance and being undeterred, you can do anything. But what do you tell the average kid out there that just cannot get past anxiety?
Yeah. Well, first and foremost is let them know, you're not alone.
Hmm.
And that's why I always start off, every talk that I do with, sharing my story, which is well, you've listened to the TED Talk, so but it's a very vulnerable part of my life. And I'm willing to share that with literally everyone, apparently. And just to show them that, hey, I'm not ashamed of that by any means. Like, I went through this anxiety. I was living at a point in my life where it completely controlled everything that I did, and now I'm at a spot to where I still have anxiety from time to time. I don't want to say that you can totally rid all anxiety, because you can't, and you shouldn't. You do need it for things, but you can get to the point where it's not controlling your life, and that's where I'm at now. And so that's what I've just been sharing with teens on, how you can get there, which I talk about in my TED talk with the 3 steps
Mm.
um, that I help people use and that I used myself.
As far back as you can remember, have you always been an anxious kid? And I guess the second part of that is, what kid isn't anxious? I mean, aren't we all, like you said earlier, about just part of being a part of being human? Is that, when you're born, you sign up for certain traits, and I think being anxious and those things are just normal. But kids don't think they are, and that's one of the problems, right?
Yeah. So I mean, I yeah, I've pretty much felt socially anxious or struggled with it severely ever since I was a little kid. I mean, pretty much ever since I can remember. I mean, I can name you instances as early as kindergarten that I would put in that category.
Hmm.
But I don't think there are any kids who aren't anxious. Like I said, we need anxiety. I think that's something that
Right.
a lot of people skip over. Like anxiety's purpose is to keep you safe and protected. So you need anxiety if you come across a coyote on a run. Like this makes me think of I went on a run the other day, and this dog was just like barking at me, and I'm like, okay, whatever, I'm just gonna ignore him. And he's getting a little more aggressive, so I'm like, okay, I'm gonna like show him who's boss, be like, oh, get in his face type of thing, which did not work. And he just started like charging me, showing his teeth, and then that made me dip. But like I needed anxiety in that moment because I
Yeah.
need to stay safe. I need to get the heck out of there. Now, the thing is it's gotten more, I don't know if it's like kind of like evolutionized or more modernized, but we
Right.
get we get anxiety in times where we don't need it, when its purpose is not being used correctly. So when anxiety comes up, that means our brain is telling ourselves, you're in danger, get the heck out of there. But I would feel anxious, and I know from the students that I've talked to now that many students get anxious about, raising their hand in class. They get really anxious
Mm.
about that. But it's
Hmm.
like you're not in danger in that scenario. Like
Right.
this like anxiety shouldn't be popping up, but it does a lot of times. So it's like, okay, how can we retrain our brains to realize like, okay, I'm safe when I'm in this scenario, so I
Hmm.
don't need anxiety to come up. That's where the money is.
It's like your fight or flight instincts. You talked about the evolutionizing. It's like, we have used to be, you heard something in the bushes, you just immediately ran. That was your instinct because it
Yeah,
probably was a lion. And if it wasn't, there's no downside. It's like
yeah,
running. Is it like, if you stand and see what it is first, there is potential downside. It could be a lion charging you. So we've adapted those type of ways over the years through evolution. But um, so coping mechanisms. Let me ask you, when you were younger, did you get into sports? I mean, for me, my hyperactivity, as I was labeled, attention deficit, all these things, which I don't dispute at all. I actually lean into it to learn from it. I really like having attention deficit. But did you do sports? Did you do things like wrestling or things like that to get that? Your parents are always put you in something like that to get that energy out of you. Is that something that you did when you were younger?
yeah. I played soccer pretty much my entire life. I mean, ever since I was, I think, like 6, all the way up to my freshman year of high school. So yeah, I was in sports, and I played for the school team or whatever, and then I pretty much just played, whatever kind of like pickup basketball. Not that I was great at it, but I always had like a kind of a competitive nature, so I enjoyed sports in that aspect and the competitiveness of it.
Did you struggle with depression, things like that during your high school years?
Oh yeah, oh
Okay.
yeah.
So you think they go hand in hand? You think anxiety and nerves and that, do you think there's a relationship there, that a lot of kids that are depressed, I hate that. I don't like that word personally. But because it's kind of another label that we use. But when you're going through moments of depressive times in your life, did you think that, um, being anxious or having that anxiety feeling contributed to some of this depression?
Oh, surely. I mean, especially when I transferred schools and went to this super huge, public school for the first time, from this really small private school. Because I got super alone. Now at my old school, I grew up with those people, so that was the only people that
Right.
I knew. I had a small support circle, so to speak, of friends that I could I could be myself and comfortable with. But when I transferred schools, I lost all that. So then I became really alone for a long time. And yeah, I got really depressed because of that. I just felt like, why can't I make friends? A common thought that I had in my head was like, why am I not normal like everybody else?
Yeah.
Because I wasn't aware of what anxiety was, and that kind of trickled down into depression. And I don't talk about this hardly ever, but yeah, I think my first year at that new school, I lost about 20 pounds, and
Mm,
I did not have 20 pounds to
right.
lose. I mean, because I couldn't eat. I mean, nothing. I had no appetite. It was rough.
My youngest son's in kind of in that boat right now. He's 19 and he's going in that phase from high school to college and not really sure what he wants to, you know, what he wants to do. And I think that starts to affect your stomach. And, he's having just some concerns and no appetite, things like that. And he's lost a lot of weight, but he's didn't have any weight to lose. And so, yeah, we're kind of going through different ways to navigate through this. So, um, yeah, it's really a challenge right now with kids today. I think Gen Z. I'm doing a lot of research on Gen Z primarily because of the app that we're launching here coming up this summer. Um, and it's a teen mental health app that we're focusing on. We're really geared towards Gen Z. So for me to design something like this, I had to get in the head of Gen Z. So I've done a lot of research on Gen Z. I feel I'm pretty well qualified to discuss the lens that they view from. And that's one of the things that caught my attention with you when you sent me that email was that your focus on teens and young adults. And that's pretty much where I'm gravitating to as well as an advocate. I think it's tempting to go down all the different rabbit holes,
Yeah.
it's tempting to be a fentanyl dad advocate because that's what our oldest son died from was fentanyl poisoning. Or I could be an alcohol advocate for recovery and rehab because that's what my wife passed away from. But as I started going down these roads, I realized that all these things are interconnected. They're co-occurring issues. And so they all fall under the mental health umbrella. And
Yeah.
so that's kind of where my projects have all been gravitating to. But so you are older than you look, right? Because you look really young. But I think on your TED Talk, you said you have 3 kids. Is that right?
Yeah. Three
Okay.
kids, wife. I'm 29, by the way.
Okay. Well, yeah, I mean, but yeah, so you are really admire what you're doing, man. A lot of 29-year-olds with a wife and 3 kids aren't focusing on mental health for, kids not too much younger than you. Gen Z is basically age 10 to about 25, 26. So, you're focusing your mission towards that age group. What are some of the issues with, and I have my own thoughts on this, but you're on my show, so I want to hear your thoughts. You don't want to hear mine. Um, what do you see are the biggest problems with Gen Z right now? There's a lot of them, and there really shouldn't be, but there are. So, what are your biggest concerns?
My biggest concerns with the Gen Z, I'd say that one of the biggest problems I see is the lack of self love that they have for themselves.
Mm-hmm.
I think especially them and adults too, but definitely them just because they've grown up in kind of this more modern, social media way focused world is like the comparison syndrome type of
Mm.
thing. It's so easy to just get like stuck up in that and just
Now,
feel like
do you
you're
go through
not good
this?
enough.
Do you go through this?
I used to, for sure. Yeah.
I do. I'm not going to lie. I do. And one of the reasons why my activity on Twitter starting in this year, I decided just to cut that down because even though there's so many heroic stories and so many great things people are doing, I just felt like I wasn't doing enough. And it was odd because like if you posted something, Kyle, about, you're speaking in front of, 500 kids at a school, I am genuinely happy for you. I'm
Yeah.
100% happy. I really am. I'm like, wow, I think that's awesome, Kyle. But something in me is like, Jeff, you're not doing enough. You're not doing enough. So I wasn't jealous of you. I wasn't
Yeah.
angry that you're doing something I feel like I should be doing. But I'm like, what am I missing? Why aren't I doing a presentation? So I just told myself I can play this game every time I go on Twitter and I can be genuinely happy for everybody, but simultaneously not be jealous, but just be disappointed in my own production, my own process, what I'm doing. So in a sense, it's imposter syndrome, and that's, and again, I'm 56 years old, dude. I shouldn't be sitting around having imposter syndrome over what people are doing, but I'm just highly competitive. And I was going to ask you, with kids today in this generation they're in, I have to think, if I feel that way at 56, man, what are they feeling?
Yeah, they're feeling it at an extreme level. That's for sure. There's no doubt about it. I mean, and it just really brings me back to like when I struggled with this a lot, and it happens from time to time. But I wouldn't say it's like a big or like one of my top struggles, so to speak. But I remember I would wake up and like the first thing I would do in the morning was I would just get on Facebook, 'cause that was the social media of choice when I was in college. And I would
Mm-hmm.
just sit there and like scroll for like 20 minutes before I even got out of my bed. And then I'm supposed to go on and take on the rest of my day when I've just, watched so and so they
Yep.
graduated college, and this
Yep.
person, just got married or they got a new
And you're
girlfriend. I'm
happy
like,
for them, right? You're happy for them.
yeah. It's not like I'm like, screw
It,
you, because I'm like, I'm
right.
happy about it.
Exactly.
But at the same
Yep.
time, I'm like, what am I doing, man? I ain't doing nothing right now.
Right. Yep.
And I think a big thing for me is just like been doing my best to curate my feed appropriately so that doesn't happen as often. So like, I'll be honest, I use TikTok a lot. I consume on TikTok for a variety of reasons, for entertainment, for information. And so I kind of have like curated, like I have some things that are just like purely entertainment that I just like, some people that I just think are funny or whatever. And then I have like a few people that I follow that are, informative, that are kind of motivating,
Mm-hmm.
that type of thing. And then maybe just some like etc stuff. But like, I used to have it to where everything that I consumed was just like motivating slash like information for me to learn. And I
Mm-hmm.
thought this will be the best because this will just like help me grow, and then the more information you consume, the more you can learn, the more you can apply. And then I started getting into like information overload, which I
Me
don't think
too.
enough people talk about. And surely I'm not
Right.
the only one who experiences this.
Right.
And it got to the point where I was just like consuming so much information that there's no way I could apply it all. And
Right.
then I was feeling bad about myself because I couldn't do all this stuff. And it was just a mess. And yeah, I don't remember what the question is, but that just made me think of that.
It's okay,
Yeah.
man. I often start speaking and I can't remember what I'm even talking about. No, I just think that, again, I'm using the lens I view life from and my wisdom in this many years of being on this planet. And if I can have some of these feelings, then I just really worry about the youth today because, I'm in a position where I've done well financially. I'm in a position where I built a company up from age 23. I've written the book, done the podcast, did all these things that I should feel really proud about. But there's just something about the situation that I'm learning from that I need to be more in the moment. I need to be more present in my life and be not so wrapped up in the past and certainly not overly consumed with the future. Less talk, more action type mindset. And so um, I meditate every day, which, we're taping this in the morning here. But before I came on air, I had a 20-minute meditation session. I don't know if that's something you've done at all, but I think meditation for an active mind is good. There's some really misunderstanding about meditation. You're not controlling your thoughts. You're not trying to exercise anything like, bad thoughts or things like that. You're just observing and witnessing
Yeah.
thoughts. And that's been helpful for me to be in the moment. And this in the moment mindset has become so important to me that my tattoo is even living in the moment. So that's a raindrop hitting the water. And after my son died, I had to find a way to get my active mind to just slow down and not be so caught up in grief and trauma and, sadness and sorrow and suffering, that I stumbled upon that living in the moment, raindrop hitting the water. And I thought, wow, what a great tattoo for me. That's the only one I have so far, because now when I look at that in the morning or at night when my shirt's off, it just kind of puts me back into that time where I need to go, okay, Jeff, all that's important is right now. Like right now in my life, what's important is our conversation. Kyle and I, that's it.
Yeah.
I used to be sitting there thinking about everything, have my other calendar, have my phone up, and just, just like, an addiction, really, doing something despite adverse consequences. That's the definition of addiction. Let's go back. Again, I segued off into something. I'm not sure I was going with that. You talk about lack of self-love. And I like that perspective, because going back to kids again, what are you can't tell a kid to shut off social media. I think you and I agree with that. That ain't going to happen. Telling kids not to do things doesn't happen either. They just, all it does is pique their curiosity. But how do you develop confidence in kids today, in the face of or despite of these challenges they have? You're talking about, concerns with the global warming, the political environment's arguably the worst I've ever witnessed in my life, or just hating each other. There is no middle ground. There's no understanding the other point of view. It's just, I'm right, you're wrong, you're an idiot, this is why. And that's the world we live in today. But how do you create self-love and self-confidence for kids in despite all this out there?
Yeah, well, I think those two things go hand in hand. So I always like to tell everybody, so like, if you like fully love yourself, like you just love who you are, you love what you do, and you can learn to accept yourself and just fully embrace like Kyle, are you going to be concerned about what others may or may not be saying about you? Because I mean, that's what social anxiety is. It's the fear of being negatively judged by others,
Mm-hmm.
in social
Mm-hmm.
situations. So like, if you can get that self-love part of it, man, that's a huge piece of it. Because if you can start to develop that, and yes, it takes time, it's not going to happen overnight, nor is it easy, nor is anything that I say easy. None of
Right.
this stuff is easy, and it shouldn't be, because if it was easy, everybody would do it. There would be no mental
Right.
health struggles in the world. But yeah, I put a huge focus on building my self-love when I first, started making mental health more of a priority. And that's what I try to share with the teens and, the young adults that I speak to. I talk a lot about self-affirmations, using the I am statements, saying those things into the mirror. I am strong, I am brave, I am a good public speaker, those type of things, to try to rewire those cycling thoughts. I read a stat the other day. I may be slightly off, so correct me if I'm wrong, or if you know the answer. But anyways, I think it was said. I think 90% of our thoughts are repetitive, and that
Mm.
85% of those thoughts are negative.
Mm-hmm.
And so when you have those negative thoughts just constantly running your mind, for most of us probably on autopilot, you may not even realize that it's
Right.
happening, but it's like, I'm not good enough. I
Right.
can't do this. I can't make the team. I'm not smart. You have this stuff consistently just running through your brain, then that's how you're going to feel. So we
Mm-hmm.
know this stuff works, but it also works on the opposite side. So if you start using those affirmations and maybe start rephrasing some of those negative thoughts, that's what I always like to say is like, okay, get a journal or get a piece of paper, start writing down, what are those most common thoughts that you have on a day-to-day basis. Try to find like 5, 10 of them, whatever it may be.
Yep.
And you might have to sit with yourself in silence for like 10 minutes to think of it. Cause like I said, they kind of run on autopilot.
Yep.
So it's kind of like a meditation in doing this. It's like, okay, once you do those, now reframe those thoughts into something positive. So it's, I'm not good enough, then reframe it to doing, I'm doing the best that I can. And
Right.
so when you start to consistently say this to yourself over and over again, like I said, I do this just about every morning. That's starts to have the same effect, but in a positive way, because now I got those thoughts that are cycling through my mind every day to start the day. So that was a big thing for me. But I also practice, gratitude. Big believer in meditation. There is just a ton of evidence that shows
Hmm.
that meditation is huge for your anxiety. I honestly, if there's like one single greatest tool for anxiety, I'd say it'd be
Me
meditation.
too. Me too.
Yeah,
It's
if
a
you look
chapter in
at
my
the
book. It's that important to me.
yeah, I mean, if you there's studies out there that show the MRI studies of people who meditated who felt anxious and people who were anxious and didn't meditate. It's wild. I mean, it shows. So like there's those two parts of your brain, the limbic system in your brain, which is more like the emotional side, and then
Hmm.
you got that prefrontal cortex, is just
Right.
more of like your logical side.
Reasoning. Yep.
Yeah, exactly. And socially anxious people, or just anxious people in general, shows that limbic system, that emotional side, is like revved up way too high, and then that logical side is like way too low. But they showed through those MRI scans that actually meditation started to rebalance those two things. So it's
Hmm.
like, if you feel anxious, try meditation. Like, my goodness, just try it. I mean, maybe
I can't.
meditation isn't for everybody, but
I can't agree with you more. I mean, that I meditation has just been, and I never meditated at all until about 51 years old. So think of all the years that I went through what and I, again, I kind of just forced myself like you. I didn't like public speaking. So I just decided I was going to do a lot of public speaking. That's how I was going to force myself into not really enjoying it, but lean into it to learn from it. But
yeah,
meditation has been that one thing that really glues it all together, or maybe unglues it in a way, just by looking at everything being so disconnected but connected, and thoughts, just the idea of
exactly.
thoughts and how we spend so much time, especially adolescents, just an inordinate amount of time captured in thought, and majority of it negative, like you said. And it isn't that we're trying to expunge negative thoughts. We just don't want to hang on to them very long when they do come in, into our head, in our mind. So it's like, I welcome them, but I'm going to just watch him die. I'm going to watch him. I'm going to observe that thought to just go away. And so there's some power in that. It kind of gives you power, like during the day when you're in a position where somebody cuts you off and you want to flip them off or say something bad. Through meditation, you just realized, hey, that moment of anger that just came into my body, it wasn't there, 5 seconds ago. It's not going to be there either. 100% of every negative thought, 100% of every negative emotion we've ever had has expired. It's died. We just add new
Yeah,
ones. So with that mindset, kind of with this knowledge that we have, we should be better at acknowledging that these things are just part of being human, and they're not abnormal. They're not disorders. This is why I hate phrases like attention deficit disorder, even anxiety disorder. It's like, I would prefer, if I could be king for a day, I would take all these labels and I would give them their due. Okay, fine. Attention deficit. But let's stop there. Let's don't add this clinical diagnosis so we can file an insurance claim word disorder. And let's call it a spectrum. So, Kyle, you have attention deficit, right? So, are you a 0, which means basically no one notices, you don't notice it, but you still have it? It's just suppressed and you're lucky. Or you're a 10 and you're all over the place and you need Adderall, let's say. Um, why can't we look at things like that on that spectrum? And then instead of now young Kyle thinking he's a disorder and he's looking out the window at school thinking about things that he shouldn't be thinking about because he needs to be thinking about calculus. Jokingly, I'm saying that. Instead of looking at that individual as a disorder, why can't we just look at it differently? I guess I go off the old mindset is if what we were doing was working, we wouldn't have to entertain these other options. But what we are doing is not working. And it's so bad now there's an Adderall shortage in our country. There's more adults on Adderall right now than children. So it's like
yeah,
something's got to give. I think reframing is powerful. You've talked about it a couple times. I don't know if you know much about Stoicism, but that's a big part of their practice is reframing.
Hmm.
And that's why at the end of all my speeches, I say, here's the greatest question you can ask yourself, the single greatest question any human being can ask themselves. And how you answer the question dictates the quality of the rest of your life. And the question is this: do things happen to you or do things happen for you?
Mm.
That's simple. I mean, that's one is a victim, the other is a victor. The one is on the bitter road, the other is on the better road. And that's how I tie up my presentation at the end. So I ask all my listeners, ask that question to yourself. You a victim or a victor? Because I certainly can be a victim. There's no question. Alcoholic, compulsive gambler, buried a child, buried my wife. I could sit around and be a victim. It's not that I refuse to be a victim. I just don't think I am. I believe in my heart I am the luckiest person on the planet right now. And death gave me an opportunity to look at life with a lot more gratitude. So I don't know. I
Yeah.
just got off on that because you had talked some things that you said got me triggered about thinking about some of these things. People are curious how other people fight through adversity. That's why I have you on the show. I want to know a little bit more in detail about your day to day. Do you think the first 30 minutes of each day for a teen is make or break?
It's make or break.
First 30 minutes you do when you get up. How important is that for a teenager?
I'd say it's very important. I mean, I guess it all depends on how you spend your first 30 minutes. I'm a
Well,
big advocate of not being on your phone the first hour
that's
of
where I
the
was
day.
going with it. That's where I was hoping you'd jump on that. Yeah, I mean, because
Okay.
I mean, I used to just pop up and jump on my phone,
Yeah.
and then my mood
Same.
was dictated on whatever post was there.
Yeah. Or email or whatever. The weather.
So, what does a teenager do the first 30 minutes? What do you suggest in lieu of being on their phone, or if their phone provided a meditation app like mine does? Then you're actually on your phone, but I'm using it for meditation.
Yeah. So I mean, I guess I'll just explain to you how I spend my first 30 minutes.
Yeah, that'd be great.
And I guess that's what I would suggest. Not every practice is for everybody, so it's kind of pick and choose, I guess. But here recently, over the past couple months, I've been jumping on the ice bath bandwagon.
I
So
heard that.
that is the very first thing I do, and I love it.
Oh, did you buy an ice bath, or you just fill up your tub, or?
No, I got a tub downstairs, so yeah, I fill that up, and that's the first thing I do because that is so uncomfortable and hard to do. And if I can do that, then the rest of the day seems a lot easier.
I love
Not to
that,
mention
man.
all the benefits of doing that, but love starting out the day that way. And then right after
Now,
that, go ahead.
do you like the first time you did it? How many seconds did you go in, or do you increase them over time, or like what type of? Is there a program out there that talks about the best way to do this? Because you're like the 10th person in the last like 2 weeks that says they start their day off. So I'm like, okay, I'm in. I want to try it. So, is there like a tutorial on YouTube that talks about this, or I haven't researched it? So,
Yeah, there's oh man, what's his name?
I know
Man,
Joe
I'm blanking on
Rogan.
his name.
The big guys,
No, not
have
Joe
talked about it.
Rogan. The first guy I ever heard it from was like 5 years ago. He was doing it before everybody else was doing it. At least from what I can tell, I didn't see anybody else do it except for like this past year. I've been seeing a lot of people hop on like Joe Rogan and stuff like that. Hoffman, Iceman Hoff.
Yep, I saw the documentary.
Okay.
Yep.
Okay, yeah. So,
Yep.
yeah, that's what got me started into it. He explains a lot of the benefits and stuff, and I've read some of the studies as far as like how often you should do it, how long. I'm not going to sit here and quote it to you because I can't remember, but
How
I
long do you
remember
do it
like
for you?
you want to. Oh, go ahead.
How long do you do it for you?
2 minutes a day. I heard that if you do it for 11 minutes a week, that's where you get the benefits. So I was like,
Now, is that
2
at one
minutes a day.
time? You do 2 minutes at one time?
Yeah.
Now, are you putting ice in your water, or you just have icy cold water?
I started putting ice in my water because I just fill up my bathtub with just the coldest water, and then I would get a bag of ice and pour it in.
Oh man!
And then I would check the temperature of like ice with the ice in it and with the ice not in it, and it's just about the same, just because like one bag of ice doesn't really do much for an entire, big old bathtub. So I was like,
Yeah.
okay, I'm gonna stop spending money on ice. I want to eventually get one, that's nice and temperature controlled. I mean, they cost like 5-10 grand, but eventually.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what I've been doing. It's usually just ice cold water.
I'm really intrigued. I wrote it down. It's something I'm going to jump on Amazon or something today and look it over and see, because I got a sauna, which I like my sauna.
Mm.
And I use that sometimes pre-workout, sometimes after workout, but I do like anywhere from 20 to 30 minutes at about 150, and you can soak pretty good in there.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. And I have, other things I do in my routine, but the ice thing just I've tried the cold showers. I freaking hate those. I just hate them. I just can't stand in a shower with ice cold water over me. I think it'd be easier for me to just go into a plunge and
It
just,
is.
just go, I can see me doing that than standing there with cold water on me. I'm fighting it, I don't know. But
Yeah.
anyway, yeah, I'm really intrigued of adding arrows to the quiver, as I like to say. I don't think it's possible to have too many coping mechanisms. I don't think you can have too many.
No, I don't think so. It's better to have a large utility belt. Just pull whatever out you want.
Yeah, that's how I look at it. So let's go back to Gen Z again with my fascination on Gen Z. Like I said, I'm trying to pick your brain and see if there's something I'm missing here. So let's take social media off the platform, because it's an easy target to blame social media,
Sure.
or to make Gen Z feel like, oh, if we had social media in our generation, we wouldn't have been addicted to it. That's BS, man. If phones were around, I'd be doing the same damn thing. I'd be
Oh
probably
yeah.
doing more. We just grew up without that stuff. I mean, we had black and white TVs, no remote control. I was the remote control. My three brothers and I, my dad would say, turn a channel. We had 3 channels. Cartoons were Saturday mornings from 8 to 8:30. That was it. And then we got so bored, we just went outside. We just played outside. It's all we did all day long. I can sit here, look out my back, my studio's in my basement here, and my neighbors have kids. And even during the summer, I don't hear any laughter. I don't see a lot of kids playing outside. I do. My neighbor girls occasionally will be out and playing when they're swing set and stuff. But it's really sad. It's really sad how isolated our kids have become. And again, we can blame whatever we want to blame, but the simple fact is kids aren't really outside much today, getting sun, enjoying nature, turning over rocks, seeing what critter scurries away and identifying it, and just being creative, building grass forts out in the woods, catching snakes and frogs. And I mean, it sounds so, I don't know, simple, but like you said, it is. It doesn't have to be that difficult. It's hard,
Yeah.
it's not easy, but I think it's simple. I think the solutions to this mental health crisis that we are now in the midst of, this epidemic, they're not easy from a perspective that it's like a pill or a TED talk or a motivational tape I can buy online. But I think the solutions are simple. I think we get back to being vulnerable. We get back to sharing stories. We get back to supporting each other genuinely. And I think if each one of us could be a little more intentional on our posts, less braggadocious, less about how great I am, how great my kids are, how great my job is, we can still do those things subtly, but try to bring in more people. And I'm this year, 2023, I'm so much more intentional with every reaction I make, every post I make, and try not to make it about me or my story or my kids or my job or what I'm doing. And if I do, make it so I can frame it so it actually makes other people feel good,
Brings value. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, if I win an award and I go and post it on Facebook, I think the collateral damage is worse than whatever benefit I got from that post. And so that velocity of the negativity that's unintentional, I'm not trying to make people feel bad, but in the one moment where everyone's liking my post and I'm patting myself on the back, oh, I'm great. I think there's a ripple effect there where it actually is doing more harm than good. So how do you talk about your successes publicly without making other people um, feel bad? And it's like I said, it's unintentional. And somebody could say, "Well, that's not my problem. You know, if my kid gets straight A's, gets a full ride to Stanford, I want to go talk about it." And I don't have a problem with that either. But then how do we disseminate that information, but do it in a productive manner where you're not making people feel bad? And someone could say, well, people aren't. Well, yeah, they are. That's the problem. They are. I mean, suicide rates are the highest they've ever been. Attempted suicides are the highest they've ever been. Depression's the highest it's ever been. But yet social media just seems to be this place where we can use it for good. And so I just didn't know if you had any thoughts on that, or if you agree with that, or.
Yeah, so I agree with the people who may say like, well, it's not our job if it makes people feel better. If I want to share this, I can. Like, okay, yeah, like I can understand that mindset, but it's like also if you just got some great achievement, landed a big talk, whatever, like share the value in that.
Yeah.
What share the inspirational value in that? Like
Yep.
I want to hear that. I
Right.
could care less about what you did, but tell me about the steps that you took to get there. How did you get there? What was it like? What does it feel like for you right now? Because I mean that's what I always try to do, because I hate posting stuff just to say like, oh, I landed a TED talk. Like
I
I
do
don't
too.
remember. I don't remember exactly what I know I did a post about it, but I didn't just say that. It was, I think I even cried while I was talking about it. Actually, I did a video after after I got a call from the lady who was running the TEDx event. She said she wanted me to speak, and I just put my phone on camera and started videoing myself, and just kind of just I was just tearing up because I
Mm-hmm.
was so like grateful and just like overwhelmed with emotion. Like that's what I wanted people to see. I wanted to see that. Like I didn't want to just be like braggadocious. That's what I would say.
Mm.
It's just like show the inspirational side of it. Like, yeah, tell us about it, but like give us some value from it as well.
I like that. I really do, because the end result was the same. People knew about your TED talk, but the way it was presented, that wasn't going to make anyone feel inferior. That's my
Yeah.
point. That's my point. I think we can do the same thing, but we present it differently. You know, like if you want your kids not to do X, we don't have to tell them not to do X. We can come at it from a back door, come at it from a different way, and that's where my mental health advocacy lies at this point, Kyle. Is I'm trying to figure out that back door. I'm trying to figure out, through all the last few years of literally, I mean, literally, when I say I went around the country, I did go around the country for 95 days in an RV, knocking on doors, hugging strangers, hearing stories. Um, there's something out there that I can take from this and I can put together and present to, the world, I guess, dramatically, to try to make it a better place. What that is yet, I don't know. And that's the beauty of the road that we both are on, is that there's so much upside to what we're doing, and there is no downside. We just keep searching, keep trying methods, keep meeting. You know, like I said, I mean, I got a random email from you, so I don't know if do you have a company that sends out those emails? Because that's what caught my eye, was that you sent me an email, and it looked fairly generic. And I won't be too specific, but it caught my eye. I mean, hey, I'm Kyle, social anxiety. Okay, let me check this kid out. But it worked. And my point is, as an advocate, is you need to get out there. You need to work it. You need to send out those emails. You need to post those things, because eventually you're gonna meet somebody that you can take something from and add it to your story in a good way. You know?
Yeah. Yeah, and I mean everybody who's a mental health advocate, I mean we all have the same kind of overall goal, right? Which is to help increase awareness, help people feel better about themselves. I mean, I think that's what we're all striving to do, and sharing our own personal stories to help people do that. So I don't see people in that do similar things to me as like competitors by any means.
Right.
I just see them as like friends and people that
Collaborators.
I work together with. Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. All right. So, how do people? Let's talk in the last few minutes or so about what you do, what you have available for people who follow me that maybe want to reach out to you. A little bit about your organization, and then how people can reach you.
Sure. So I'm a teen mental health speaker. Speak at schools, organizations, different events. Also been doing a lot of speaking to parents here over the past 6 months or so, which has been cool because I think that's the other side of teen mental health is getting the parents on board. Obviously, they have the biggest influence in the teenagers' lives. So that's been really cool. And then where you can reach me, I've been spending a lot of time on. I think we talked about this, but on YouTube. I do stuff on TikTok, which is honestly just smaller versions of my YouTube. But for those of you who can't watch 10 minutes of something in a row, I get it.
10 seconds nowadays.
Yeah, yeah. So I got shorter versions, but that are able to still provide value, which took me a long time to figure out how to do. It was very challenging, but yeah, it's been fun. And then, yeah, if you want to reach out to me, whether you want me to come speak or you just want to ask me a question, reach out to me on the website. Got a little contact form. It's socialanxietykyle.com. And honestly, I love hearing from everybody. Anybody who emails me, I reply to you. So it's not like you have to be offering me something of value for me to reply to you. If you ask me a question, I'm going to answer, and I'm going to give you a pretty in-depth one, one that you may not expect that I would write. So, and yeah.
How old are your kids?
8, 7, 4.
It's good ages, man. Yeah,
It
I
is.
mean, because those are great ages. My granddaughter's 6, so I'm enjoying her immensely. But I often think about what's coming down the road. How can you talk to kids that age, and get them teed up for what mental health is? I mean, is that something you've thought about? I mean, how do you have a conversation with a 7-year-old about mental health without using the words mental health?
Well, all my kids know what mental health is, but
Well, of course yours do.
yeah, yeah. Yeah, my lane is definitely not speaking to elementary kids. That's for sure. Not that I wouldn't want to, but I'm just not the
Right.
person to do that.
Oh,
But my kids, we invest a lot of mental health practices in them. So we do gratitude together. We do meditation every single morning.
that's awesome, man.
So yeah, we try to keep very open and explain the language of how to talk to people and not just be like, I hate when you do blah 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 blah. And it's like,
Right.
okay, well, like, hold up, like you feel whatever when they do this, like trying to get them to understand how to talk to people appropriately and how to come and share when you're having anxiety or you're feeling sad. Like it's okay to come talk to me or come talk to mom. And that's been really cool. So my hope is that instilling that at a young age, and I believe it will have immense impacts,
Yeah.
especially the meditation part. I'm really
Right.
excited about that. You imagine meditating since you're like 5 years old? Oh man.
The Dalai Lama was quoted as saying, if he could get all children to learn meditation, he could eliminate world violence in the world in one generation.
I
And
wouldn't doubt
that's the
it.
Dalai Lama, and he's a fairly smart guy. I think he understands the game a little bit.
Yeah.
Well, listen, man, I really enjoyed this. Really appreciate it. I can certainly see us collaborating together on some initiatives. I'm really happy that email reached me and that I opened it and that had a chance to watch your TED Talk. And I really admire at 29 having this passion that you've kind of I won't say stumbled into, because you've been intentional about this. This hasn't been an accident. But I see big things in your future. I think the timing of what you're doing couldn't be better, and that's an unfortunate statement. That's kind of a
Yep.
sad state of affairs, because Gen Z is the first generation of all time to put mental health as their number one New Year's resolution. By the way, first generation of all
Oh, really?
time.
I didn't know
Yep,
that.
first time. And so they're aware. They know they have issues to work on. They know there's problems, and we have to provide solutions for them, or at least some tools in the toolbox, right?
Yeah.
All right, man. Well, I really appreciate this. This has been great, and I know this will be a popular show because a lot of my followers are really heavy into teen mental health, and they should be,
Awesome.
because they're the ones that are going to inherit the world. So, well,
Yeah.
thanks, brother. Keep living undeterred, and really appreciate the opportunity to talk with you today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me on, Jeff.
You bet, man. Take care, Kyle.